I had a wonderful job offer, and I got a call that the company was going out of business, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I moved back in with my parents in Cincinnati, kind of moping around the house, trying to figure out what to do. And my mom, very, very wise woman, was like, "You're not doing this. You've got to get a job." And I said, "Well, I can't. I'm trying to get a job. I'm pounding the pavement." She said, "Oh, okay, that doesn't matter. Like, there's jobs. Like, yeah, I'm going to take you to the mall." She dropped me off at the mall and was like, "I'm coming back in 2 hours and you better have submitted all of your applications."
This is In Community with Fahad Khwaja. Zena, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad to have you. I know this has been a conversation that's been a long time coming. I'd love to just start us off by really starting at the beginning. And when I say beginning, I mean the very beginning. That's where I always start. Can you tell me a little bit about one of your earliest memories?
It's funny you ask this because it actually came up for me last week. My son just started first grade, so big moment for him. And it made me remember when I started first grade. First of all, I couldn't quite believe that he's at this age because I have memories from that time. But I was thinking back to it, and we as a family had just moved from the Chicago area to where I ended up spending most of my youth, Cincinnati, Ohio. And we had just moved to Cincinnati, and it was the first day of first grade for me. And I remember waiting for the school bus, and there were all of these, kids here in our neighborhood that were waiting. And I was the new one, and everyone was kind of, giving me the side eye. Who's this kid? And the most popular girl in fourth grade was there, who lived less than a block away. And I still remember this because I was new, I was scared, I didn't know what was going on. And this beautiful, cool girl came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to come sit next to me on the bus?" And all the other kids kind of jaw dropped, like, "What? This new kid is getting to sit with the popular girl?" And that kind of moment of kindness and just community, she reached out to me and made me feel welcomed. It still sticks in my mind to this day, and she didn't have to do it. I again was just a first grader. She was a cool fourth grader, and yet she made that effort, and it sticks out in my mind all the time. And I think a lot about it, even outside of my son starting school. But whenever I'm starting a new situation, how can I be that person for someone else?
That's so cool. And by the way, I really want to know what being popular in fourth grade looks like. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember much about fourth grade, but yeah, I guess you have to be pretty cool. And when you're that young, having a fourth grader, when you're a first grader, reach out to you, that is a big deal, right?
Totally. Well, I'll tell you, she was super cool because she had a Walkman and she was playing Madonna. And, that was just the height of cool back then.
Yeah. Wow. Ahead of her time. Do you know where she ended up? Did you ever keep in touch afterwards?
No, I did not, but I think about her often, and I always wonder where she went and what she did. But yeah, I just found that moment like such a special one, and it wasn't that big of a deal to her, and she was the cool girl, but also the kind one, and she did this kind of thing all the time, but it made a big difference to me.
Well, I've got a surprise for you. She's not here. Don't worry.
That would be amazing.
Can you imagine if somehow I managed to have her show up and jump on with us? That would be crazy. But no, I'm not that magical with how I can do these things. I love that though, because you're right. It was sort of what feels like a simple move, but here we are all these years later, and you remember it. And to your point, you've taken that forward. Right. It's something that when you show up in a room, you're making sure that you're that person. That's pretty amazing. Tell me a little more about where you were growing up. What was that like? Can you describe the community that you grew up in?
Yeah, I mentioned I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Was actually born overseas, but moved to the States when I was really young, so I don't remember anything else. And most of my childhood was spent in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'll say I had a great experience there. Growing up in the '80s in Ohio as an Indian American person, you might think it would have been a tough experience, but I feel like I had a great community where I grew up, and I say that in there's two layers of it. We did have a very tight Indian community that my parents were a part of, because at the time, there weren't that many Indian families in Cincinnati, and the couple dozen that there were made a lot of effort to get together to make sure that we had roots and understood, our culture. We had, by parents self-taught Sunday class, where we learned about various things in Hinduism and about India. And I still have a tight, community with many of those people that I grew up with. But I'll say also the broader community was a really solid one. Again, I talked about this neighbor of mine and this girl who helped me kind of acclimate. But even I'll say for my parents, there were a number of neighbors of ours that were, as traditional Midwestern American as they come, and yet were very open and welcoming to us and wanted to know about, oh, you're from India, tell us about it. And they were supportive, they were helpful, they enjoyed the little things my mom would make them, Indian sweets, things like that they really did make us feel welcome. So I think it may have been a pocket of it that I was in, because I know a lot of people have had very different experiences, but I'll say I overall had a great one there, and I really enjoyed the community that I grew up in.
Did you have a sense when you were growing up that you were maybe one of those first few Indian, families? And did you have a feel for whether you'd want to stick around Cincinnati or make a move out, at some point?
Yeah, I'd say I always knew I wanted to go somewhere kind of bigger, faster pace of life. From a younger age, places that we would visit. I remember, going to New York City as a kid and looking around and seeing, oh my gosh, this place is amazing, and I want to live here, or I want to live in a big city. So I think as a kid, just because I thrived on the energy of that, the excitement of that, I always knew I wanted to go to a different place versus staying in Cincinnati kind of long term. But again, it was a good place to grow up. I think it's a place that did value community, and again, I feel fortunate that the small exact community neighborhood that we lived in was welcoming on the whole. I'll say there were moments for sure, being out and about, some places where someone would make a comment or say, go home, we don't want you here. So I don't want to make it seem like it was perfect. There was definitely those things, because there just weren't that many immigrant families, people of different, skin colors, ethnicities in the community. But 98% of people there, I think, were welcoming and supportive of having people in the community that were different from them. And so I still do believe in the world 98% of people are good people and welcoming people. It's just sad that sometimes that 2% ends up getting all of the news and attention.
I'm with you, and there's a lot of noise out there, right? And there's a reality, so it's not backed up by nothing. But you know that the sort of strap line for this show is what connects us is greater than what separates us, and I'm a
Yes.
big believer in that. And what you just shared is a great example of that. So take me through your journey a little bit, right? So you're growing up in Cincinnati, you're thinking about what might be next, you're thinking about going on to a faster paced place, a bigger city, something that's a little different. What took you to, eventually make the move out? Like, take me through your journey a bit as you're through high school and college and onward.
I went to high school there in Cincinnati. I went to college in Ohio at the Ohio State University. And when I was in college and even in high school, I really loved technology. And here was where it was kind of burgeoning and growing. This was kind of mid and late 90s. It was building up to the dot-com bubble. There was a ton of excitement in that, and I had a passion for it. So I majored in computer science and had some great internships in college. I had a wonderful job offer to move to the big city and have a great programmer job. I was going to get paid a ton of money. And a couple months before I graduated, I got a call that the company was going out of business because this was the dot-com bubble bursting. So I graduated in 2001 and I had no idea what I was going to do. I moved back in with my parents in Cincinnati and was kind of moping around the house trying to figure out what to do. And my mom, very, very wise woman, was like, "You're not doing this. You've got to get a job." And I said, "Well, I can't. I'm trying to get a job. I'm pounding the pavement, sending my resume everywhere. No one's hiring right now. No one wants, this computer science role." And she said, "Oh, okay, that doesn't matter. Like, there's jobs. Like, yeah, I'm going to take you to the mall. Like, go and find a store that needs your help." And so she dropped me off at the mall and was like, "I'm coming back in 2 hours and you better have submitted all of your applications." And so I did, and I got a job at the mall. And at the time, I will say I was feeling crestfallen. Oh my gosh, I've got a degree in computer science. I was supposed to be this hotshot programmer at the startup, and now I'm working at a store in the mall. What's going on? But it was a super formative experience for me, kind of getting to work a sales job, figuring out how to meet your quotas every day. How do you manage all the things that you have to do? It's a funny coincidence that it was actually at a department store there, and I worked at a makeup counter because I've always loved beauty. And so I love telling the story at Sephora because many of the people here have also gotten their start, as makeup artists or working in retail for beauty. So my love of it goes back to that time. But it was a really great kind of first job, both humbling because I was put into a role that actually didn't have anything to do with my degree, and yet I still had to figure out how to be successful. And humbling because it was hard. I also thought, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake, right? I can like phone it in. I'm just working a store job. No, it's tough. There's a lot you've got to balance. There's a lot you got to do, and sales is not easy. So it was a great formative experience for me. While I was doing that, I kept kind of looking for a full-time job more in my field, and I kind of landed in marketing because it was a great job that I found. It was actually at GE. It was a division of the company that sold servers and workstations and technical products. So I knew that from my computer science background. But this was a product manager, product marketing manager role where you would kind of develop the commercial plans behind these technical products. And so that was a great eye opener for me. I kind of saw and learned about what marketing was, and marketing, I'll say, not just as creating marketing communications, but GE has a view of marketing as you are kind of driving growth of the business. So I enjoyed that a lot. And then being in Cincinnati, of course, one of the best places for marketing was in my own backyard, Procter and Gamble. And everyone said, Zena, if you want to do marketing, you've got to do it at P&G. That's the best place to learn. So I was kind of a lucky hire in that I was off cycle timing. I didn't come with an MBA, kind of right place, right time. They had an opening and was thrilled to start there. And that's kind of where my marketing journey began. So, yeah, it was a fantastic formative experience working there and learning a lot about brand management.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, just starting from the piece about graduating and the bubble burst on you, right? And it happened to a lot of people around that time, and it has continued to happen in various ways over the last few years, right? Especially even the generation coming out right now, coming out of college, right? It's tough out there. How much do you think it was the pressure from your mom that made you go out and really get that job versus, what, maybe you feel like you would have done it anyway? Was it really like, no, mom is saying you got to do it?
Mom was like, you've got to get something. And she knew that, your ego my ego needed a little like knocking down, like, oh, you want to sit here and, watch TV and hope that you'll get your dream job again. She's like, you gotta work. You gotta find something. And of course, keep looking for that job. But you've got to do something in the meantime. And, one of my firm beliefs is that progress is important versus having to achieve or hit a goal, and that was a lesson I learned at that time. Like it wasn't my dream job to work in retail, yet it was doing something. I was up every day. I was going out of the house. I was learning a lot, and that kind of fueled the fire to, okay, I like this. I'm learning a lot, and I want to get back to something that, I studied and have deeper passion for.
Working in retail isn't easy either, and you're right. I mean, it's true. You don't really know until you get into it. So, okay, you went from studying computer science, having the bubble burst on you, go straight into retail, and then basically go into a marketing program at a very, very big company, GE. What was that transition like, knowing that you really hadn't had any background in marketing as far as training? What was that shift like for you? What did it feel like for you?
Mm. I had a little experience. I took some classes in
Mm.
marketing. I knew kind of what it was. But I'll say the change was more in having a full-time job and really understanding what that means, how a big corporation works. Those are big lessons to learn, and not things that I think you're actually very well prepared for in school. The majority of, corporate life is figuring out, how do you get things done? How do you influence people? How do you sell your ideas, rather than kind of the technicalities of the job? I feel super fortunate because I had a wonderful manager at GE that I am still in close touch with today, who really helped show me all of those things. And he was an incredibly smart and incredibly hard worker, and helped me kind of learn the ropes. And again, the technical stuff, I knew, oh, okay, you got to put together this collateral about these offerings. Okay, I know these offerings. I can write something. But he was really helpful in helping me understand, okay, this is how you talk to clients about these offerings, or this is how you figure out how to get this organization excited about your idea. And so I think it was a good transition into corporate America because I had someone who knew how the game was played and was also ready and willing to share that knowledge with me and help me.
So, what was one of the first projects that really helped you showcase what you could do, or maybe even helped you spread your wings in maybe that first role? This episode is brought to you by Philo Ads. Philo Ads is built for brands that want premium connected TV placements without the premium price tag. With a 55% multicultural viewing audience and highly engaged audiences on fan-favorite TV networks like A&E, TV One, MTV, OWN, Lifetime, and more, Philo Ads delivers a CTV experience that gets results. So kick off your next campaign with Philo Ads today at ads.philo.tv. That's ads.philo.tv.
I mean, I'll probably actually use an example from when I was at P&G and, great company. They call it an academy company because you learn so much. And there was a pretty, documented way of doing things and running projects there. One of the things that I really, really enjoyed when I was there was working on a project to do a kind of quick turn initiative launch. So, typically, again, in the P&G process, you had a certain timeline, you had all these stage gates you had to go through on timing. But what we had seen in the marketplace, I was working on Olay skincare at the time. Some of our competitors were launching kind of trendy products a lot faster. And we knew that there were certain things that would be a hot trend for a moment, and then it would kind of fizzle out. And this was, I'll say, the early days of this rhythm that now is everyone's day to day in beauty. That's kind of how it works. But back then, there weren't as many launches. There wasn't as many trend driven things that were happening. So one of the things that I feel like I really enjoyed and the organization really valued was figuring out how we could do a kind of a quick turn launch that had a different success criteria. We wanted it to kind of go up like a flare and then come down versus kind of the slow and steady growth of a typical launch that we want to have. And so, doing and breaking some of the rules per se on how P&G did that at the time. We worked with a third party supplier on formulation because they could do it a lot quicker than we could do it internally. We used some stock componentry for the packaging, which typically we had to make our own. And it was really fun because we were working on a very fast timeline. It was a kind of shorter period to get approvals. It was a shorter period for testing, but it was energetic. It was exciting, and we were able to launch something that had a great impact in market. So I think that was a formative moment because I got a chance to show that I can do things kind of outside the box a little bit, and yet also work within the massive system that is P&G.
Yeah. And as you think about that, or even as you've grown in your career since then, how do you feel like that contributed to, and what would you say is your superpower then? What is it that you do that really helps you stand out, more than anyone else?
I would say my superpower is being resourceful. I feel like throw me in any situation, professional or personal, and I can figure out, okay, if this is, the cards I've been dealt, this is how I'm going to play them to the best of my ability. I enjoy that problem solving and again, figuring out how to do things a little bit differently. I'd say, that experience I mentioned at P&G really helped set the stage for my transition to Google. So having been in packaged goods, for at that point almost 10 years, I knew and learned all the fundamentals and understood really well, the 83-step process of how to properly launch a product. When I went to Google, there was no process whatsoever. And to the point of being resourceful, I feel like the thing that I brought to that and why I was successful in it was I figured out, okay, this is an environment where an 83-step process will never work. But, if we have a zero thing, how about we introduce three? Let's just align on some key success criteria. Let's figure out some key people we've got to align with, and set some milestones, and kind of adapting to the situation and figuring out from what I knew what was going to work where I was kind of this superpower. So I really enjoy situations where I'm challenged to use what I know, but maybe apply it in a very different way.
Well, so speaking of challenges and making moves, that also meant moves geographically, right?
Yes, yes, indeed. So I went to college. I grew up in the Midwest. I went to college in the Midwest. I worked at GE, P&G, and even Kellogg in the Midwest. And when I got this role at Google, it was wow. This is my chance finally to go to the big city and um, get a chance to move to the coast, and 10 years delayed, but here's my dream working for a tech company. This is going to be great. So it was a really, really cool opportunity. And making it out to San Francisco was a bit of a dream for both my husband and I. So we made the transition and didn't really look back.
Did your husband have any concerns at any point? And actually, I'm curious with his role. Was he able to move as easily as you were? How did the two of you navigate some of those things when it comes to personal versus professional?
Yeah, we were really lucky. So we met at Procter and Gamble. And at the time, I like to say unofficially P&G wanted people to pair up because someone somewhere had done a study that if you were married to another P&G person, you were more likely to stay at
Wait,
P&G.
is that true? Did someone actually do that
You
study,
know,
or is
I
that a
have
joke?
I have to find it. It was lore around the halls there that was the case, but I never actually saw one. But there's quite a few PNG couples, and most of them do tend to stay. But actually, in our case, we did not. It was kind of funny. We have been able to move to two companies together twice. So we both moved and worked at Kellogg, and then we actually both moved to work at Google. So we have been super lucky. It's tough to do that. We interviewed at the same time, started on the same day, kind of
Wow.
came as a package deal. So
Way to go, companies landing a package deal like that. What a deal. What a steal.
yes, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving forward, then obviously you had a great formative experience at Google. Now you're in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
You're with your husband there, and he's obviously working at the same company, which is a rare thing to be able to do. Bring us up to speed to where you are now, and a little bit about, again, the transitions in between. What took you to that next role? What took you to that next one? Because again, I know there were a couple more geographics moves, from one coast to another and then back, and it's been a busy last few years.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to spend almost 7 years at Google, and kind of the first half was in marketing, and then I actually moved to the product side, kind of business operations, general management, product versus very technical product, because when I was working with one of the leaders there, he said, "Zena, you're not a typical marketer." Because in tech, a lot of marketing roles are more focused on marketing communications versus, the general management side that I had learned at GE and P&G. And I said, yeah, that's my passion, is not just marketing communications, but actually marketing for growing the business, a growth lever. And he said, okay, you're asking me about our portfolio strategy and how we're managing our margins. Like, why don't you come over and run my go-to-market team for the US? So it was sales and operations, thinking through strategy for what kinds of things we wanted to do to grow the business. And I really enjoyed that part of it. But then I missed marketing. I love a good consumer insight, figuring out how to craft an idea. How do you change someone's behavior? And I wasn't getting so much of that in a pure kind of GM role that was highly operational. So I had a great opportunity to go back to CPG, which is that place where you get both the kind of marketing piece and the general management piece in one role. I worked at Kimberly Clark as their global chief marketing and digital officer, which was an interesting experience given I started right as the pandemic was starting. So a global role that normally I would have been traveling the world and meeting marketers and cross-functional partners everywhere. And it was all on Zoom. So it was great in the sense of getting to build some things that really helped set some foundations for them, their tech stack, thinking about digital as a growth driver, first party data, that they were just at the early stages of that journey. But I also realized through that experience in global, at these big kind of multinational companies, you aren't actually owning your budgets, the larger organizations, and driving action. You're setting the strategies, you're influencing, but you're not actually doing. And having been an operator for so long, I really missed that kind of ownership, and being able to move quickly. So I left there to go back to an operating role. I worked at PepsiCo, running carbonated soft drinks marketing, but was only there for a short time. About 6 months in, they had a major reorg. The role that I went there for went away, and it was a challenging time for me. I throughout my career, I was always the one kind of in control of what I was going to do next, and building my story and building my portfolio of experiences. And I thought this was going to be another great one. And then, coming in and everything moving all around me, and not, driving that change, it was tough. And so, went the route of leaping into the unknown, despite just having moved to New York, and really not having a community there, and trying to settle in with now leaving a job. It was kind of a rough time. There was a lot going on, but I'll say, I really want to find what's right for me. And I'll take a beat to do that, which I had never really done before. So, had to believe in myself a little bit, and I'm so glad I did, because I then came to Sephora, which has been just a fantastic experience. I love the work that I get to do. I love the people that I work with. Our industry is so much fun. I told you my very first job was in beauty, at selling beauty at the counter at Dillard's in Cincinnati, and now to be working here and kind of driving strategy and marketing for one of the best brands in prestige beauty has been really a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, what I love about your story also is just not only that you took a chance on yourself at a point and, landed in a place that seems like it was even better than where you were, but throughout all these experiences, you were kind of learning a little more about what really energizes you, right? And the fact that you even went into these pretty amazing roles on paper, but also in practice, but realize, you know what, this probably isn't right for me. I can do a good job at it, but I want to be an operator. I want to be closer to the business. I want to be the one who's driving things for the P&L, and sort of have that uh, awareness is not always an easy thing. What do you think it was that helped you get that awareness?
I think it came over time. I'll say, being an immigrant, having, Indian parents, you're never good enough, and and I'll say a lot of immigrants, and Asian immigrants especially, feel like, well, I shouldn't be too confident. I shouldn't be too boastful. I shouldn't, I'm always at a disadvantage. So it took time to kind of build that up. But over the experiences that I've had, over the, networks of people that I've built over the years, I came to know and feel like, okay, I've got something. I know what I'm doing, and I'm good at what I do, and I need to find a place that sees that, appreciates that I can contribute to, and that can also contribute to me and my growth. So I won't say that it was an innate thing. I think I had to pick it up over time and over a lot of experience. So it's not an easy thing, but it can be done. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
kind of proof that if you focus on building your experiences and confidence in your experiences, you can carve your own path.
Absolutely. And I have this sort of joke with friends as well that you haven't really made it in corporate America until your role has been eliminated. Like if you've really gotten to a stage where nothing has gone wrong, then you're sort of not doing things right. You're not taking chances. You're not going in directions that could be a little more, risky. And sometimes, it doesn't work out the way you'd like, but every single time I've seen someone go through that, truly every single time, they land in a better place. And yeah, they have to often go through a tough time. It can be jarring, but I love that, you landed where you did. So we're coming to the end of our time. I want to shift gears a little bit. And there's a couple quick questions I have before we jump into our lightning round. So first, I want to actually ask, how do you stay healthy and take care of your well-being? You have a really high demand job, you've got a family, you've got travel. How do you make sure you're actually taking care of yourself?
Oh, Fahad, I wish I could give you a good answer here, but I don't have one. I don't think I take care of myself as well as I should. I'm fortunate that I do get a lot of energy from my work, so it's not draining to me to spend the time that I do. But after days, weeks on the road, all the demands of life in addition to work, absolutely, I can get run down. I'd say the things that I really enjoy doing, spending time with my son, probably the best thing ever, taking a nap with him on a Saturday afternoon. That's kind of like my nirvana right there. So I'd say I try to do those things and make sure I keep them in my rotation, because if it's been a while since I have, I'll feel it.
Yeah, and carving out time for yourself is tough, but even that moment that you just mentioned, it gives you energy, right? And I always say you have to put in energy and get energy back. And if you're putting energy into things where you're not getting it back, that's when you know it's probably not the right direction, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you give someone who's looking to follow in your footsteps career wise?
Hmm. We mentioned it earlier, believe in yourself, the worth that you bring, and know that you will find a place that will value that, even though it might not be the place that you thought it was going to be. I'd also say take a chance on going to a high growth environment.
Hmm.
I'm 100% confident if I had stayed in CPG, I would not have accelerated my career as quickly, because it's not a high growth industry. There's a lot of people kind of fighting for market share, and it's just tougher to show what you've got. When you go to a high growth environment, there's so much abundance, and if you have an idea and you have the passion to bring something to life, you can. And so I tell people it's good to balance experiences in high growth and slow growth, because you learn a lot of different things in each place. But definitely, and especially for those that kind of see a lot of traditional career path moves and going to these big companies, figure out how to get some high growth experience, because you'll learn a lot in that.
What's one thing most people don't know about you?
I can juggle.
Okay. I'm not going to ask for you to elaborate on that one. Okay. Is there a book, podcast, or show, anything like that that you've enjoyed recently that listeners or viewers should check out?
Yeah, I actually this past weekend, I met her at a brunch. There's a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott, and she was, talking about the book, and I've read this book and got a lot out of it, and she's a phenomenal woman that had a lot of great anecdotes. So that's one that I recommend. It's all about how do you approach relationships with candor and with care, to share things with people, to form deep relationships and trust to make things happen.
Final question. We're in the lightning round. This is going to be a quick answer, no time to elaborate, no time to ask me questions back. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Comedy or drama?
Drama.
Roller coasters or bumper cars?
Roller coasters.
Day or night?
Day.
Teleportation or time travel?
Ooh, time travel.
Breakfast, sweet or savory?
Savory.
Your go-to hype song?
Pink Pony Club, Chapel Roan.
All right, that one you can elaborate on. Why?
One of the things that I love about the leadership team that I'm on here at Sephora is we all work really hard. Everyone is deep experts, and we like to have fun together. And so we've kind of developed a thing when we have meetings when we're all traveling together. We somehow find time for karaoke, and everyone knows that's my song. So it's my favorite.
Okay, well, just so you know, I'm a fan of karaoke too. So next time we're in the same city, we're gonna have to make it happen. So
Yes,
I'm warning you right now.
it's happening. It's happening.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Zena. It's been great to have this conversation. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me, Fahad.
This episode was brought to you by Philo Ads. Philo Ads delivers premium content, a CTV first audience, and zero stress ad buying that works for everyone, from scrappy startups to savvy marketers. So go ahead, shake up your ad buying strategy, and launch your next campaign with Philo Ads today. Make sure to visit ads.philo.tv to learn more. That's ads.philo.tv.